If you go back to the 70s in the US, which is what I would say when globalization, which is very much tied to free trade, came to the fore. And it was very much driven by the fact that the US had pretty high rates of inflation. Towards the end of the 1970s, it was double-digit inflation. So there was a lot of pressure on the governments to do something about inflation and bring down the cost of goods. And it was about that time that US corporations started developing stronger trading partners in China. What we discovered that when you look at one of our biggest retailer like Walmart's, 60% of what Walmart sells is made in China. So people became very enamored with the idea that we could bring inflation down in the US by selling more high-quality, low-cost goods, largely from China, but also from other Asian countries. The problem is that when we got to the Trump era, which is when a lot of things started to unravel, a lot of the Trump supporters are blue-collar workers. For them, the negative side of free trade and globalization is a lot of jobs were moved offshore. And so you had blue-collar workers basically saying, we're losing our jobs, and American companies are paying money basically to foreigners to produce goods for us and taking our jobs away from us. And that's when you had Trump basically decide he needed to deflect attention away from COVID, where he basically underestimated the power of it completely, and we had over 1 million deaths early on. So Trump launched sanctions as a way to, quote, punish China. He's basically said, China is a communist country, therefore they're the enemy. They stole our jobs and they stole our IP. And to penalize them real world, I'm going to put in trade sanctions that will hurt them. But what people are now gradually discovering is that it's also hurting ourselves, because inflation did start to go back up again. And so now I think you have a very healthy dialogue on where do you draw the line between pure free trade of anybody can sell anything anywhere and where we are today. They're very high-end nano chips that could have very clear military applications. But if you look at the sanctions that are applied to chips today, it's a much broader group than it is just the high-end chips. So my hope is that free trade will get more momentum going forward. There will continue to be tariffs and sanctions, but they'll be very selectively used for a very specific purpose. And that 95+% of trade will basically be done in the spirit of free trade, which means whoever produces the best product at the lowest price is the best supplier around the world.